So this one, Steve Albini died recently, and I don't know if you know much about him, but
I know a couple of albums that he produced, and they're great.
Yeah, I had no idea he worked with Jimmy Page and Robert Plant.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So I there's another clip I want to play that I didn't send you and Eric, but let's read this stuff real quick about. So Steve Albini, probably for people from my era, the biggest thing he's known for is he produced the In Utero record, Nirvana's In Utero album. But he was in Big Black. He was in what's the other band? They talk about it in here. Anyway, legendary Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page paid tribute to producer Steve Albini. Steve served as recording engineer and mixer for Page's 1998 collaborative album with Jimmy's Zeppelin bandmate Robert Plant, Walking into Clarksdale. I did not even know this existed until today. So earlier today, May 10th, this is from Friday, Page took to his social media to write, "I was very sad to hear of Steve Albini's passing this week. Robert and I worked with him in 1997 on our album Walking into Clarksdale, a record I'm still really proud of. I had a strong connection with Steve. We all did on that album. He came with such a pedigree and experience as one of the world's leading mixers and audio engineers. He loved working with analog tape. In fact, his own band was called Shellac. That was the band I forgot. He was so passionate and knowledgeable, really dedicated to the cause during our recording sessions at R.I.K. and EMI No. 2 Studios at Abbey Road." Steve had worked with Nirvana on their third album and also with the likes of Pixies and Bush. He had an impressive CV and leaves a real legacy. R.I.P. Steve. In a 2020 interview, Albini reflected on his work on Walking into Clarksdale, saying it was enormously intimidating to be around people with that kind of pedigree and experience, and it was gratifying to be asked and to realize that I was satisfying them. That's very concise verbiage. Concise verbiage. That would be a good band name. He continued, "My admiration for them as musicians and as people grew during that session. Jimmy Page is known as a guitar player and as a producer and as the guy who put Led Zeppelin together. But what impressed me the most about him was his ability to listen with incredible detail. He could hear a playback of something and pick out little details that he liked or didn't like with incredible acuity. You could hear two passages that to you and me would sound identical. To him, he could hear that there was a missed emphasis on a third note of a second tuplet of a triplet section or whatever. Him being able to listen to the music in precise detail, I described it as him being able to see every bird in the flock." Albini died earlier this week of a heart attack. He was 61 years old. In addition to fronting underground rock acts Shellac and Big Black, Albini produced albums by PJ Harvey and Neurosis. Neurosis is like a legendary band. They made these things called like Tribes of Neurot, where like back in the day you'd buy the CDs and you could play them together on different CD players and they like matched up.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Oh, their Neurosis was the shit. Like their live show was insane too, very like percussion based. And anyway, in 2004, Albini estimated that he had engineered the recording of around 1,500 albums. According to Mix with the Masters, he continued to work almost entirely in the analog domain, being known for recording live in the studio as much as possible. He also placed particular emphasis on the selection and use of microphones in achieving a desired sound and to best capture the ambience.
So I don't know if you know this, but he did one of Zayo's albums.
Yeah, I did know that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Was the Fear what keeps us here?
Yep. Yep. Which was a very unique record for Zayo.
Funeral of God.
The Fear is what keeps us here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the dude is legendary, and I want to show this clip of him I found a couple days ago with Anthony Bourdain, just to give you an idea of the type of person he is, because I think this is.
So you have remarkably unusual for the music industry, remarkably lenient views on music sharing. Your pricing structure as a producer is goes somewhat against the grain of the usual business model. And you were not living in LA or New York, living on a mountaintop, peeing on the, peeing downwards from a great height. What are you, some kind of a communist? What?
Well, I mean, I have a healthy suspicion of capitalism as a method. I feel like, left unchecked, capitalism is a kind of cultural sociopathy. Like, for a business to be successful in capitalist terms, it has to do the best possible job of exploiting everyone that it does interaction with. The end game of capitalism is that everything is crappier and crappier, and people are more and more exploited, and I have a healthy suspicion of that. So I feel like the social model that I'm comfortable with, it suits my business practices, which is that we're all in the same game. We're all trying to do the same thing. We just want to make sure that things get better for everybody.
Is that a Chicago attitude, you think?
Well, in my circles it is, yeah. In the punk rock scene and the people who are influenced by the punk rock scene, that's a very common notion, is that you're not trying to extract the maximum, you're trying to make sure that everything carries on.
I thought that was cool. The late great Anthony Bourdain and Steve. And then this last piece about Steve Albini. Foo Fighters dedicate My Hero to Steve Albini. Foo Fighters paid tribute to Steve Albini Thursday night during the band's concert in Charlotte, North Carolina. Prior to launching into the Foo Fighters hit song My Hero, the band's frontman Dave Grohl, who worked with the producer on Nirvana's In Utero album, told the crowd, "Tonight I'd like to dedicate the song to a friend we lost the other day, who I've known for a long, long time, and he's left us much too soon. He's touched all of your lives, I'm sure," talking about Steve Albini. For those of you who know, you know. For those of you who don't know, just remember that name, Steve Albini. So let's sing this one for him. In a 2013 interview with NPR, Grohl stated about Nirvana's collaboration with Albini on the follow-up to Nevermind, "He was one of our heroes, man. That was a big deal to be able to make a record with him. I had Big Black Records. I love Surfer Rosa, the Pixies album. To make a record with him was a big deal, and I admit that when we walked in there, I was terrified and intimidated because his reputation was that he was really cynical, opinionated, and I'd heard stories that bands would send them their single and ask them into the next record, and he would smash it and send it back with no letter," stuff like that. Like, oh my God, he's the Colonel Kurtz of the music industry. This is crazy. He's gone too far up the river and he's lost it. And then we get there and he's like a pussycat. He's the sweetest person in the world. And we had a blast. He and I got along really well because we're both kind of goofs. So R.I.P. Steve Albini. Seems like a really good dude.